All right, today I am excited to welcome Chris Scott to the show. Chris, thanks for joining me. How you doing today?
I'm great, Brian. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. We hooked up on Podmatch there, and it seemed like you've had an interesting journey to get to where you're at now, and that's what we'd like to talk about on the show. But at first, I'd like to let guests introduce themselves, who you are, what you got going on now, and then we'll circle back and figure out how you got there.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me, Brian. Very happy to be here. My name's Chris Scott. I'm the founder of Boschetto Consulting. Boschetto exists to help small business owners find and fix their execution debt, which is essentially the pain points in their business. Very excited. It was an interesting road to get here, and I'm sure we'll touch on it more. If you had asked me a year ago if I would be here, I would say no. But if you had asked me 5 or 10 years ago, this wouldn't even be on my radar. So, life has a way, man. So I'm really excited to jump into it and dive in.
Oh, for sure. So let's kind of go back to when you were a kid. I mean, how was childhood? What'd you kind of want to be when you grow up? Did you have a big goal that you were looking to go, or you just kind of roll through it?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a professional Major League Baseball player. That was my dream. I'd be in the backyard with my brothers and, we'd play wiffle ball and, hit the wiffle ball over the fence. Someone's got to climb the fence to go get it. The stuff you see, I guess, in movies or whatever. So that was us. None of us became professional baseball players, but we all turned out, knock on wood, I think we all turned out all right. So
who did you want to play for?
The Orioles were my team growing up. So it's been nice lately. I don't know if you're a baseball fan, but the Orioles have had a bit of a resurgence of late. So they had a down period there. But Cal Ripken was my favorite player. Nice. How could he not be? So
right.
I grew up a huge Orioles fan.
I was a Mets fan when I was a kid. My dad was a Yankees fan, and I was a Mets fan. So I definitely know the downs and the ups with following that team for quite a while. So you wanted to be a baseball player. You didn't. It didn't pan out, but you enjoyed it a lot. Were you? Did you end up going to college for anything particular? Did you pursue any sort of career coming out of childhood dreams when your dreams were smashed and you didn't get to play ball?
Yeah, so my dreams were smashed. I played a bit in high school, but my baseball career from a playing standpoint quickly ended. But when it ended, I picked up umpiring, right? Because again, huge baseball fan. So I started umpiring, and I started when I was 16 years old. And at that, it was a way to stay involved with baseball and make some money on the side. And again, I'm 16 years old. I'm making some cash every weekend working, little 8U baseball games. And it was just kind of a hobby. And that hobby grew into something more. So I did go to college. I have a finance background. But while in college, I was umpiring baseball. So I umpired a lot of high school and some Division III baseball. And again, so I'd go to class in the morning and then get out, maybe go work a game or something like that. And so that was a hobby. And I was, still making some money doing it, but I think it was something I was halfway decent at. And so along the way, someone recommended, hey, you should try going to professional umpire school. So I did.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I was going to ask, like, what is this process like? If somebody has this lifelong dream of being an umpire, there obviously is a process to go through.
There is. So I'll preface that it's changed a bit since I got in and out of baseball. So for anyone listening, this is my disclaimer that perhaps do your own research if there's another umpire out there looking to get into the professional ranks. But at the time when I was in, about 10 or so years ago, so you had to go to professional umpire school, which is about a month long. And then at the time there were 2 schools, and they selected approximately 25 people from each school, and you went to a week-long evaluation course. This was all in Florida. So of those, again, approximately 50 people at the evaluation course, they ranked you 1 through 50. And that was how they filled their slots in minor league baseball that year from an umpiring perspective. So I was very fortunate. I received a job for minor league baseball and started working games that summer. Again, I think this has changed from what I've heard, but at the time that I was in, you had to work your way up every level. So, as a Mets fan, for instance, Juan Soto signed with you guys this off season. When Juan Soto was in the minor leagues, Juan Soto went straight from AA to the Nationals at the time. That was the team he was with. So he went straight from, I think he had like maybe 8 games in AA and then went straight to the big leagues. That can't happen from an umpiring perspective. So you have to work your way up and go every level and every level. So you start at low A and then you work, hopefully work your way up to what is the big leagues.
How long does that process take? Is that like years and years and years? And like once you're, is it like a Supreme Court judge? Once you're a major league umpire, you're like in and until you don't want to do it anymore?
I can't believe you said that, Brian, because there is a fact that in, I don't know, the early 2000s, there were more Supreme Court justices hired or sworn in than there were major league umpires hired. So that's, yes, literally that. Once you're in and you're offered a contract, like you're there for life until you decide to hang them up. So, but it takes a very long time to get there. I think there's about 80-ish umpires on staff now. They have some crews that are in replay. So I think it's around 80 guys on staff. And so you can imagine that when there's no, you don't have to retire after a certain amount of time, it's very limited spots. So, you're working way up the minor leagues and it gets more and more competitive as you get up there. Between, not to get too in the weeds, but between AAA and the major leagues, there is they call it a rover like position. So you can get a number, which means you're eligible to work Major League Baseball games, but you might be up and down. So you might be working a Mets game for a series in New York, and then you're back in Scranton working AAA Yankees affiliate. So it takes a very long time.
Is it a full-time job as a minor league? I imagine major league. I mean, at that level, you kind of dedicate that. Or like NFL officials are part-time, from what I understand. Is Major League Baseball a full-time job even on the minor league level?
It's not. It's gotten a lot better. So my last year was 2019. So from my understanding is that things have gotten a lot better in terms of just the ability for it to sustain, umpires throughout the year and whatnot. When I was in, I picked up, I content writing was my side job. So, I was blogging on the side and, we'd be traveling to these towns and we get in and I do some work because that was supplemental income. And that was also income that I could use throughout the off season. Cause we're not paid throughout. That's probably the big caveat. We're not paid throughout the off season. So you're only paid for the 6 or so months that you're working. So, for me, I picked up a side gig.
You're traveling. So it's not like you're doing your day job and then going to the ballpark at night. You got to travel around a bit. So that can, that gets to be, it's really, you see the dedication that gets to be put into some of the stuff to get to the elite levels and the things that people have to go through and the sacrifices. And that's one of them I don't think people think about is, you're not getting big bucks for busting your ass for years in the minor leagues to maybe make it. You're no longer in baseball. So what happened that ended up with you not doing it anymore?
Yeah, and to your point, no one wants to be a minor league umpire for life, right? Everyone wants to work in the big leagues. That's the goal. And unfortunately, that was not in my cards, like I said. So a lot goes into making it and getting hired. And some of that is luck. And unfortunately, my luck ran out with some injuries that struck while on the field. I got injured working. And so my career kind of came to a very abrupt end. It was, again, 2019. And long story short, like some injuries happened and that was it. My career was over. So I was chasing this dream. And to your point, the sacrifices and you're traveling and you're away from home and you're making all these sacrifices. And I was like, well, now what? This is, again, I've umpired since I was 16. Now what?
Did you have another plan? I mean, injuries are tough because they're like that. It's not like you get a rolling into it. I might change my mind. Did you have a backup plan? Did you have any idea what you wanted to do if it just didn't work out?
My mindset going into it, Brian, when I became an umpire was that I've got to try. Again, and I went to school, I got a finance degree, but I was like, I have to try this now because if I don't, I'm always going to regret it. So my mindset was always like, go try the umpiring thing. If it doesn't work out, you're in your mid-20s and you'll figure it out, which is kind of what happened. I was very fortunate that, baseball ended. And so taking a couple months and trying to figure out what next. And I think it was, we were doing like a college kind of get together weekend, and people were pulling me aside. Hey, you should think about this. Hey, you should think about this. And a friend of mine pulled me aside and said, you have the finance background. You probably haven't thought about this, but he worked in mechanical construction. And he said, hey, I think you'd be really good at project management if you want to give it a think. Our company has an office, based, I'm in Boston, so based in Boston, and I'd be happy to put you in touch. And that's what happened. And so I interviewed with a mechanical contractor. Very, very fortunate that mentor to this day, a good friend of mine took me under his wing and kind of taught me the ropes of construction. Again, I had a finance background, so the numbers and stuff. And,
right.
If you think of umpiring, like there's a lot of conflict on the field every night. Right. And so the people side of things, I was, from a project management standpoint, that stuff, there were skills that transferred. And he's like, look, I can teach you the construction part. So that was it. I was like, all right, well, we'll go try this and see what happens. And that was right around COVID. So COVID happened, and it's crazy reminiscing on this because I look back and I'm like, man, it's just wild again, how things go. So COVID happened, and I had just started this job. And because of COVID, some job sites were shut down, and we were furloughed like to part-time. And I'm looking around and I'm like, if there's another like round of cuts or furloughs, like I'm the low person on the totem pole. Like I'm the new person here, and I don't know anything about construction. So like, I really, I worked really hard through COVID because I didn't think I had much of a choice. And I kind of fell into some opportunity. We were on a very large project, and I was an assistant project manager, and the project manager left in January, just before COVID. So it was a project executive, a PM and an APM. And the PM left, and then COVID happened. So there was like no hiring. Again, people were furloughed. So now I'm like, well, this is a tremendous opportunity. So I'm going to push. And so I kind of fell into this coming out of baseball, that this opportunity was like laid into my lap of this. What to this day, it's a once in a lifetime project. And I tried my best to take advantage of it.
Nice. Were you successful for what you wanted? Were you able to pull it off?
We did. I mean, the project, like, it worked. It was a great project. It was a large, like, pharmaceutical lab space in Boston. Very challenging. I learned a ton. Like, to this day, again, it was a once in a career project. It was huge. I learned a whole bunch. Nothing ever like it. I did kind of burn out towards the end of it. That whole.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big project to go from. I mean, umpiring it's a big thing. I mean, but it's a different world. Were you ready for it? Did you just kind of go hog in and didn't kind of have the sight of how much it could snowball into you?
There was a part of me that was naive, and you asked a few minutes ago, Brian, like, did I have a backup plan? And again, COVID happened, and I'm like, well, I have to make this work, because if this doesn't, I'm going to be back to square one. And again, I had done some content marketing and blogging and stuff on the side, but in terms of like a career, I didn't know what was next. So I saw this as, again, like a golden opportunity, and I jumped in head first. And I think again, I was a little naive. I always wonder if I could go back, whether I would do some things differently. I think hindsight's a great thing. It's easy to sit here and say, I might have done some things differently, but also I wouldn't change anything, honestly, because again, I look at the journey that I'm on and right. the people that I've met along the way and everything. And I've learned so many life lessons along the way that, like, it's tough to have some revisionist history on that because of everything I've learned along the way.
So you had some burnout from this project. Did you think that it was from this project, or did you think it was from the job in general, or did you not know?
I didn't know. So I tested, and I went to a general contractor, because I was with a mechanical contractor, which, for those listening, your general contractor runs the job. They work for the client, but then they have subcontractors underneath them. So I went up. because I thought everything rolls downstream, right? So let me go try working for a general contractor. That did not solve the problem. I sometimes joke that I either burned out twice or I burned out once and thought I had recovered somewhere in the middle. So that, again, I think I realized then that like construction maybe just, and again, I learned a lot about myself along the way, which was good. But that was kind of my pivot, like out of, day-to-day construction. Project management.
And so now this was a conscious choice at this point. It wasn't like you got injured, so you knew you had to get out. How did you decide what to do next?
Yeah, so I knew I enjoyed running work and managing projects and whatnot, and so I'm like, all right. And I, again, trying to get out of this. I knew I wanted to get into like kind of renewable energy and stuff like that. So I went and worked for a startup that was installing level 2 EV car chargers. And I'm like, all right, well, this is like a complete course correction. I'm going to go work for a startup. And I had a blast, and we scaled from about 10 to 40 people in 9 months. And we had our holiday party, call it early January. And 2 weeks later, the investors brought consultants in, and the whole company shut down. So now, like, again, so Brian, you can see, I'm trying, and it's like, well, now what,
I've played the startup game. That was I worked for a company that did waste plastic to synthetic crude oil, and rode that wave, like you said, from like 10 employees to 50 employees down to 20 employees up to 100 employees, and then investor decides we're going to go a different direction, and you go down to like bare bones. Oh man, but had a blast. Like you said, it's a different atmosphere, I think, when it isn't that long running established. But man, that's a 3 strikes you're out. You got to be thinking, what am I going to do at this point?
Which is exactly what I did. I had to think long and hard because, I mean, just trying to figure it out, and it's. I'm sure even now I look back on this and kind of chuckle, and I'm sure, knock on wood, I'm fortunate enough to live another however many years, and I'll look back one day and be like, man, what a wild ride. And that was so much fun. So my wife, so now I'm late. I got the company shut down. I was laid off and trying to figure out what's next. And my wife was like, you should travel. And so I did. I took a solo trip and I went and tried. I just took a week and I was like, I'm just going to go travel and like just decompress. Did
you have any destinations or places you wanted to go, or did you just kind of drive or jump on a plane or?
Yeah, I just kind of like hit the road and, I kind of left. It was like a week and it was great. So that was kind of when this concept of this business first was like planted in my mind. It took a while after that to launch, but this business that I'm now working on was kind of born out of this. Again, I mentioned execution debt, and I think execution debt is all like the inefficiencies that exist in business. So if you think back to kind of everything I've walked through, again, the burnout from the first company, burnout, second company, and then the startup that failed. And I'm looking around the whole time going like, there has to be a better way. And so that was kind of like the seed that, the spark, if you will, where I was like, you know what, like there has to be a better way. And I just love working and helping, small businesses. And so that's kind of, again, like during that trip was when this idea was kind of born. And to me, it's crazy because when you look back, to take us all the way back, I'm 16, I started umpiring. If I could have told you that would have led me into minor league baseball, to traveling the country, to doing everything I did in baseball. And baseball was a blast. I met some great people, friends to this day. Some of them made it, which is super, super exciting. I got to see the Grand Canyon thanks to baseball, Niagara Falls. I traveled to some really cool small towns in America, and I got to do all this. And again, if you had asked me when I was in college, if like 5 years from now, I'd be like, no way. And then same thing, even with some of the burnout and stuff, I look back, and my wife and I recently were having a conversation. I think we're, out for a walk or something like that. And, when baseball ended, again, it was pretty abrupt, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? And she's much better about this than I am, but she's very much like, just trust yourself and trust the process. Like, life has a way. And I think I've gotten better as time has gone on, but I'm like, gotta have a plan. And again, I think I've gotten better at that. But anyway, if you could have told me when I left baseball, fast forward 5 years, and to this moment, again, my wife and I were like out with coffees for a walk or something like that. I said, you would have told me I hit the lottery. Like, this is all I could have ever asked for. And so it's tough in the moment, like you said, baseball ended. Like, did you have a plan? And it's really tough to just say, I don't have a plan, and I'm just kind of going to figure it out. And that's tough. I think it's one of the toughest things in life. And just to listen to some of your other episodes and, the people that you've spoken with and, detours and stuff like that. Like, again, if I could have told you I'd be living in Boston, working with a startup that went under, working in mechanical construction, I would have said, like, this isn't even nowhere in my childhood dreams, nowhere in my vision board, nowhere in my life story did this even pop up as a possibility. But here we are, so let's make the most of it.
I hear, like you said, the stories that I talk about with people, and there's two things. It's one is the willingness to see the opportunities that are there. Maybe if you aren't forced to, the signs. And then the other thing is, if something happens, you have to do something. You have to do something. So why not just embrace it and do something that works? Or try something new. Don't worry about what just happened, because you can't change it.
Yeah. And that's, this business that I'm running now, one of the concepts I believe in is I have this framework that's called SBI 3. And the whole mindset behind it is innovate, implement, and improve. And so, to your point, you need to take action. That action doesn't have to be some grand thing. And this doesn't just relate to entrepreneurship. Again, it could relate to, like, you're stuck in life and, you're not sure what's next. I think a lot of times, and I'm very guilty of this, but a lot of times we get, again, wrapped up in, like, the 5-year plan and, like, well, this has to be the next job for the next 10 years, the next career. Like, no, it doesn't, go, if you're stuck, go try, go start. Right. And if you don't like a job, leave. Perhaps said than done. And the economy right now is very tough. And I would, to say, like, let's even maybe dial it back a step further, right? Like, let's say, again, you're take a course, a local community college or an online course like Course RA. ChatGPT, you can, learn from ChatGPT, right? So, like, giant take a leap. Like, you can start small and fail small. And if that's again, as you navigate some crossroads and pivots, again, like, innovate, implement, and improve. So let's go try something and let's do it. And then we'll see. And if we like it, then maybe we jump in a bit further, right? So again, maybe it's something like, if you're at a crossroads with your career, take a course or talk to some people in that field and then think, like, yeah, maybe I could do this. I don't know, maybe shadow someone for a day or again, maybe try part-time.
Yeah, maybe you end up taking part of it, part of what you learned, or, like, you've acclimated or accumulated different skills along the way that all kind of add up. And I've kind of collected those skills over my career detours. You always gain something. You always gain something from trying.
100%. And there's a graveyard full of good ideas, you know what I mean? But you have to start and you have to try, because that's a great point, Brian. I think failure is the greatest catalyst of growth, if you will. And that's tough because we're very resistant, I think, as humans. Like, we're very resistant to failure. And, in today's world of social media, and it's very hard, comparison's the thief of joy. And it's tough not to look at social media and just be overwhelmed with these emotions that you're not doing enough and you are failing. But, like, to your point, failure is how you learn. And again, failure doesn't have to be this, like, grand thing where you, like, let's entrepreneurship. You don't have to quit your full-time job and jump in and do it. And then 5 years later, like, yeah, you learned a bunch, but you've blown all your savings. Like, failure doesn't have to be that. Failure can be these small lessons that we learn daily, weekly, monthly. So again, it's tough. It's tough to like do that in theory. And again, especially with social media and everything in this world today, it's tough not to look and be like, but
right. For sure.
See, you kind of have to, I think,
especially when you see all the fake things on social media, the people that are not being quite honest with what they're putting forth, or only showing parts and pieces, and then when people are trying to be genuine, they're overwhelmed. They're like, how are they pulling this off? And it's like, they're not really. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe there's a 1% or a 0.5% that are, but a lot are selectively showing a lot of things. And I think it really does a thing on people's psyche.
Yeah, no one's showing, the inner workings of their household and stuff. It's all the glorified, everything on Instagram, and it's all glorified. And I have a friend who's kind of going through this now. He's 27, and he's like, I feel like I've just kind of wasted the last few years, and I don't know what to do. I'm like, dude, just like, you're so young, like, if again, you're going to look back in 5 years from now, you're going to look back at this time and be like, I can't believe how far I've come. And again, I think it's really tough to zoom out into those like 1 year, 3 year, 5 year increments and to zoom out that way and look. But I look at my life, like I was in baseball for 6 years, and then I was in construction and stuff for about 4 or 5 years. So I look at my times and it's these like 5-ish year increments, but when you're in the thick of it, it doesn't feel that way. It's, what's the saying? Is it the days are slow, but the years are fast?
Yeah. And I mean, and with the instant gratification and the instant bombardment with, like you mentioned, social media and things like that, it's like, it's got to be now. It's got to be now. Now, and everything pushes for that. So, Chris, we're kind of coming up on time. I want to give you a chance to kind of let people know who you're looking to work with, or if they found what you had to say and they want to catch up with you more, where to find you, and plug your stuff and what you got going on, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I really, Brian, again, thanks again for having me. This is a really, really fun conversation, and, a little different than some of the other podcasts I've been on. So I really appreciate it, and the dialogue and whatnot that we had. Really enjoyed it. For those listening, I'd love to have the same conversations with you. Hopefully we'll link my LinkedIn in the show notes. I kind of, like I said, when I was traveling the country working in baseball, I made it to some really cool towns. I met a lot of cool small business owners. Everyone, has a vision and has a why, and we're all just trying to, make it and do our part, if you will. So if you are a small business owner, I'd love to talk. But even if not, if you're at a crossroads, if you're an entrepreneur, again, I would just love to chat. I really just love connecting with people. So I think LinkedIn would be a great place to start for that. I do have some execution debt related things as well. If any of the audience is more interested in that, I have a execution debt assessment for small business owners that I'm sure we'll link. And I have a newsletter as well. But I'd say, again, for anyone listening, if you'd love to follow up, I'm happy to answer some umpire questions too. I'm sure that might have perked some ears. Let's connect on LinkedIn, and I'd love to continue the conversation.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Chris. I will. I'll definitely get the LinkedIn address, and I found the link for the assessment, and I'll get that link in all the descriptions and everything. I appreciate you being here, man. And I hope I'm definitely hopping on LinkedIn, and we'll match up, and we'll keep in touch, and hopefully talk to you soon.
Yeah. Hopefully this is the first of many more conversations to come, Brian. I really, really did enjoy it.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Take care.